This week, Orange County is conducting its point-in-time homeless count. Volunteers began counting the number of people living outside at dawn this morning after counting the population in shelters on Monday. The process is meant to help service providers use the resources more effectively. As Cody Taylor now reports, the count also presents some challenges.
But this morning we're here representing the point-in-time count.
Before the sun was even up, hundreds of volunteers throughout Orange County headed out on the streets for the yearly point-in-time count. Jimmy Moon's an outreach worker for the city of Costa Mesa, and he says over the years he's seen homelessness and drug use decrease in the city.
I haven't seen the fentanyl lean in like 6 months, something like that. We don't have our big pockets of people anymore.
But that does not mean there aren't people still in need.
I haven't seen you. I haven't seen you in like months.
In 2024, the point-in-time count showed a 28% increase in homelessness in Orange County compared to 2022. The county reported 7,322 people were approached during the 2024 count. Of those surveyed in 2024, 328 were veterans, 308 were young adults between 18 and 24 years old, and 869 were seniors, age 62 or older. Mackenzie Brazen, mental health specialist with Orange County, and she believes the point-in-time count does not accurately depict the number of families and youth struggling with homelessness, because in the past,
we ran into a lot of families living in their vehicles, and they were not necessarily wanting to give up that much information. So.
While people living in their cars are considered homeless, Mackenzie says they can be much harder to locate. Anitzia Stevenson is the mother of 2 children and has been struggling on and off with homelessness in Orange County for most of her adult life. In my case, we weren't used to living like that, so it was hard. She says after escaping a domestic violence situation, she spent years living on the streets, in hotels, and in shelters while raising her 2 children on her own. She says throughout that time, she was hesitant to ask for help because she was worried about getting her children taken away. We had to make sure our children were protected and safe so the law doesn't come after me. And also economically, I have to provide. Through partnerships with nonprofit organizations, the county's trying to encourage and help parents like Nitzia get back on their feet. During the point-in-time count, they do this by providing free haircuts, helping people get IDs, and find the resources needed to get jobs. The county also had come and be counted locations for families that may be living in hotels. Doug Betts, the director of care coordination in Orange County, and he says families should feel comfortable asking for help.
We are going to help them, and that there is not a concern that we're going to take their children away or anything to that nature. We are truly interested in helping people end their homelessness.
Betts says they won't have a final point-in-time count in Orange County until May. Nitsi is currently in housing and is receiving help through the nonprofit organization Higher Ground, but she says she worries about the future. The system breaks you down in a way that makes it very hard to put yourself back together. Nitzia says getting back on your feet can be very tough, and even though she says she's still struggling, she says she's glad she doesn't have to do it on her own.
There is lots that hinges and is contingent upon the results of this point-in-time count, and the diagnosis of the problem may differ from political party to political party. That's just one of the reasons we're happy to have the chairman of the Orange County Republican Party in studio tonight to discuss all of this. It is Will O'Neill. Will, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Thank you.
I saw you just a few days ago in Santa Barbara at the Winter Conference of the Republican National Convention. We'll talk about that in a moment. We had a good conversation up there as well. But tonight we're talking about this point-in-time count there in Orange County, and we've seen some of the numbers trending in the wrong direction, as you would acknowledge as well. What's your sense of the issue of homelessness right now in the county?
Yeah, so Orange County right now, you have a little over 7,300 people who were counted in the last count. I'm not sure yet whether we've gone up or down, but I can tell you that with the U.S. Supreme Court decision coming down, allowing people, and cities in particular, to enforce anti-camping ordinances, I expect that number actually should be going down. And
yeah, you're talking about grants pass. And have you seen the enforcement of that be judicious? Has it been extreme, intense? How would you characterize that?
I've seen in Orange County it actually be judicious. So my last year as mayor of Newport Beach was actually 2024 when that decision came out, and we had the opportunity to go out and enforce inside of our city. But by that point, we had also built up a pretty solid social safety net. So we actually had the only joint city-to-city shelter in Orange County combining up with Costa Mesa and Newport Beach. So by the time we were able to enforce, we had already done a lot to make sure people could get up and off the streets. So when you're talking about enforcement, you're really talking about people who are actually refusing service. And so in my last year on council, combining those two, we saw a decrease in homelessness in Newport Beach of 84%.
Wow.
And so I do expect that we will see a decrease in Orange County, fingers crossed, but point in time counts, they're hard. I think they actually undercount.
They're interesting, and we've heard that in Los Angeles as well. The RAND Corporation has said that the counts from Los have systemically undercount too. So some of the headwinds here and some of the changes, Grant Pass changes the game a bit for enforcement, and we've also seen there's some issues with some HUD funds, a continuum of care funds from the federal government. We're also heard Governor Gavin Newsom talking about now for the proposed budget, reducing the spending on housing and homelessness, something like 56%. How would that impact Orange County's implementation and an effective approach to the issue?
Well, it would certainly affect the approach because you would have less resources to go out and try to bring people up and off the streets. While I would really encourage, I think, just about every agency, if someone is actually refusing, then you do need to either enforce or really work harder. And look, I recognize coming from Orange County, and I'm talking about 7,300 people who are homeless in a county of 3.2 million. Most people in Los Angeles are probably saying, excuse me, we have our own issues. Like, why are you talking about this in Orange County? But look, every person who is homeless is a person, they have the image of God on them. We need to get out and help them. And so, I was really proud of my efforts. When I was on council, I was really proud of a lot of the efforts that I saw on councils throughout Orange County on this issue. Mm-hmm. And so to this certain degree, yes, there is a partisan divide. I have seen a lot more focus on the Democratic side on housing first as opposed to what the Trump administration is trying to do through HUD. And you'll actually see a lot of people debating that housing first policy. In Los Angeles, look, we're now in our 10th year, right? We're 10 years out from Measure HHH, which was a $1.2 billion voter initiative that allowed for spending taxpayer dollars on homelessness. The problem is it's only gotten significantly worse here in Los Angeles, both the city and the county. And I think people are at their wits' end at just throwing money at the issue. So they want more solutions, and I'm seeing some of those in Orange County.
Yeah, city county leaders will point to certain improvements year over year, but again, there may be undercounts. It's a big issue, and over time, money spent, problem gets worse. Everyone acknowledges that. And that's one of the reasons Governor Gavin Newsom is looking at the issue, and he's, as I mentioned, cut money for housing and homelessness, but in general, the state budget has increased in its outlay, and in part, Governor's saying this is because we expect some big revenues from the AI sector and beyond. This is something you've been thinking about a lot. In fact, you posted about it recently, quoting your colleague, Senator Tony Strickland. You said California does not have a revenue problem. It has a wasteful spending problem. But we have seen some reduction from Governor Newsom with housing and homelessness. So how do you size all this up?
Well, so on homelessness, I would just point out real quickly, yeah. If his numbers are right, and they haven't been released yet to the public to find out if that 9% reduction is real, but assuming it is, it would still be 14% higher than when he came into office. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen around 36,000 more people become homeless under Governor Gavin Newsom after tens of billions of dollars are spent. So throwing money at something really isn't the barometer anymore. Mm-hmm. We really need to see the actual outlay. So when Senator Tony Strickland was talking about we have a spending problem, our budget in California is over $100 billion higher than when Governor Newsom started. I don't think anyone in California would say they're $100 billion better off. Mm-hmm.
Well, he's pointed to the fact that, yes, there's increased spending. It's also increased revenues. He's proposed here what he says is a balanced budget. Mm-hmm. And if we talk about revenues, potentially overestimating revenues, we'll see there's a May revision coming. There's a lot of negotiations. Yes. But there's also spending. And I think some of what you've been talking about is the fact that the governor's overspending in some ways in his budget proposals. Where do you think there is too much spending in the budget?
Oh gosh, in so many different ways. So his version of a balanced budget, by the way, is a $3 billion deficit, which I think he calls a moderate. And the real problem we also see is you have a projection that even the governor and the legislative analyst's office has said is between $20 and $30 billion in going forward. So we actually have a structural deficit problem. So look, we've got to get spending in healthcare under control. That's a big problem, and driving a lot of the costs has been way too much government going into that sector as opposed to less. And so we need to figure out how to decrease the cost of healthcare for everyday Americans, mm-hmm. and certainly here in California. But I mean, when we're talking about the number of employees, we really haven't seen an increase in the number of workers in California for years now. The only sector we're seeing a real increase in is actually on the public side. That's a problem.
You know, the governor's pointed to that healthcare issue, and he said part of this is the dearth of federal funding in some ways, and so the state needs to offset by putting more money in. And he's also pointed to, I mean, increased spending. There is increased spending in education. He says it's, you know, record per pupil. I mean, it's one thing to say you should spend less, and I think a lot of people probably agree with that. But then you also look at where to cut, because I mean, you increase in education, you increase in healthcare to offset what's happened in the federal government, you increase in public safety. I mean, it gets difficult, right?
It does, but one of the other problems we've got is we don't have a robust system of checks and balances on waste, fraud, and abuse either. So here in Los Angeles, for example, we just saw $23 million go out the door to someone who was supposed to be spending that money on homelessness care, and instead it seems to have gone into his pockets. And so he's now facing federal indictments. And you know, it's an interesting dichotomy right now, by the way, because you actually end up with the situation in Los Angeles that I'm seeing where you have Republicans and Democrat Socialists of America teaming up together, demanding more accountability and transparency on government, while some of the most established Democrat leaders, Karen Bass being among them, are pushing away from transparency. And so when you're starting to see even $23 million go out the door, $1 million of which went to construction when the contract was super clear that LAHSA, the Los Angeles Homelessness Services Agency, should not have paid a dime on construction, sent $1 million check to this guy, we have real problems. And so I would say, yes, we have real structural problems. We can cut in many areas. I think that we have some great leaders up in Sacramento who can do that. But man, we've really got to stop wasting this money.
Yes, I mean, Los Angeles has looked into a lot of this, as you mentioned. I mean, LAHSA, the county, is pulling some of its funding because of the way it's been administered. There's been audits on this. This is a federal prosecution. Bill Asali has been looking into fraud and abuse and homelessness. This is one person you're talking about. It's Los Angeles. And you're in Orange County. You're looking at it, obviously. But when we think about Orange County, we think about the midterms. And I saw you up there at the winter conference of the Republican National Convention. The big conversation was about having the Republican Party throw a national convention for midterms, something that hasn't happened before, to get the message out there. In our final moments, talk about what you heard up there in Santa Barbara, and also talk about what the message will be for the midterms.
Yeah, so I was one of 3 voting delegates for the state of California at the Republican National Committee winter meeting, which was a real honor and an experience I'll never forget. The big issue coming out of that, of course, we were talking about midterms. Of course, we were talking about how to grow a majority in the House of Representatives. Right now, it's 218 Republican, 213 Democrat, with 4 vacancies, including, unfortunately, the passing of Doug LaMalfa up in District 1 up in Northern California. And so we're talking about how do we grow that majority. And one of the ways that the president has asked to make sure the RNC can help that is get the message out with a convention, because during presidential years, people are glued to their TV. It is great TV to watch people get up. Some of the brightest stars of the party get up and talk about messaging. We're going to be doing that, and I'm looking forward to finding out when and where. And I can tell you, I plan on being there. So if I am, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about.
Yeah, no, it'll be great to talk to you along the way, and certainly it'll be a very interesting moment with a lot of messaging to do. Both parties looking at that for the midterms. Looking forward to talking to you more about this, Will. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage. And click the subscribe button here. You can also download our app and watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.